Welcome to this chapter in the course. This chapter is called Life Cycle Assessment, abbreviated as LCA. We'll be using this term LCA many times. LCA really is the meat of this course. So what is life cycle analysis? Well, here's a formal definition of what life cycle analysis is. It is a cradle to grave, and this is a buzzword and you may have heard of this before, but it's a cradle to grave approach to assessing industrial systems. We use the word cradle because for any product, typically the cycle begins when we extract material, stuff from earth. It could be wood, it could be crude oil, it could be minerals, anything. It could be fish, depending on the industry you're talking about. So we extract stuff or obtain stuff from the earth, and the cycle concludes when, after a useful life for a product, it's lived its life, we then retire it. Oftentimes that means you're returning materials and parts back to earth. So life cycle analysis is a cradle to grave approach to analyzing industrial systems. This is important because this allows us to compare different product options or process options in an objective manner. If you have a common starting point, which is the cradle, and you have a common finish point, which is the grave. I'll give you an example. You're all familiar with the pencil, right? Nothing special. You used it from grade school. These days we also have mechanical pencils, right? So they both provide the same function, which is writing and the ability to erase, because we got erasers in the back. If I were an industrialist and I'm looking at two options, should I go with regular pencil or mechanical pencil? Well, typically we are focused on the function. How well do they write? How easy it is to erase? How long and enduring is the written material? Those are kinds of things we have looked at. We also looked at which of these is more easier for the human hand to hold, ergonomics, human factors. But another thing to look at is which of these products causes less or more impact to the environment. That often we don't do. And so the whole purpose of this course on industrial ecology is to also look at, in addition to function and manufacture and human factors or ergonomics, the added consideration, which of these two product options for the same function is more environment friendly or less impactful to the environment. So typically when I begin something like that, I have to, these are very different, right? I mean, they use very different materials and very different processes. And so a cradle to grave approach is the best way to compare apples to apples. So if I take a look at this pencil, it's made up of different materials. We have the main material is wood, right? And then we have lead, we have a metal ring here, and we have a rubber material based eraser. If we just took the wood, the question is, what are the environmental impacts of using this wood? Well, if I did not use a cradle to grave approach, I would just start where wood comes to a factory like Faber-Castell, and they are processing the wood to reduce it to this size. In the processing, we are using electricity, which is energy. We may be using different materials during the machining process, right? And during machining, we shape the product, but we also expend some materials, maybe abrasives. So these are material and energy inputs to the process. A lot of waste may be produced. Maybe some fumes are generated. Maybe I'm using some kind of a coolant, and so there are liquid emissions and just some plain waste, wood material. Is that all? Where does the wood come from? Well, the wood comes from trees. Where do trees come from? They come from seeds, they get planted. Well, a tree takes a long time to grow. And if it is intentionally grown, then over a 10-year period, you are putting a lot of energy into it, right? I mean, you are tending to the tree, you're watering it, you're doing stuff. We have to take that also into account. Finally, what happens to this pencil when it's all done? What happens to the metal? What happens to the wood shavings each time you sharpen it? It's returned back to earth. Is it recycled or do we just dump it? So, cradle to grave allows us to compare two dissimilar product options for the same function.